If you just have casual conversations about real estate, inevitably you're going to come across someone who has referenced one of these myths that are totally not true. We're going to uncover the facts to totally debunk the top 5 myths about the housing market in 2025. Let's dive into it now. Welcome to New Jersey Living. My name is Corey Jones, and I'm a licensed real estate agent here in New Jersey with Coldwell Banker, team leader of the New Jersey Living Group and host of New Jersey Living, the podcast. Here on this channel, we cover all things New Jersey, primarily the real estate market, the dining scene, social and entertainment venues, and iconic locations. So if these things interest you, you're in the right place. Go ahead and click like, subscribe, and notification bell to stay updated on content like this that comes your way on a weekly basis. So we're talking about 5 myths that we commonly hear. So we're going to dive into those right away. If you had conversations with anyone and maybe you just research some things or watch some YouTube like this or hear local news and you get a little jittery about things that you hear about the real estate market. So we're going to work our way from number 5 all the way down to number 1, which we hear is the most common question mark, or myth that is out there. But at number 5, wait for the perfect market conditions. So if you heard that question, it begs another question. What are the perfect market conditions? If you've been around long enough in real estate, you know that the market does move in cycles. There's ups, there's downs, there's trends that move one way, they shift another. Right now, we are in a seller's market, which means sellers have a bit more leverage because there are more buyers than there is available inventory for those buyers to purchase. Will it always be that way? The answer is no. But right now, that's the trend that we see. So as a buyer, do you say to yourself, I'm going to wait until it shifts back to a buyer's market and then I'll buy because I'll have better leverage and opportunity? The question becomes timing. Is that 5 years from now? Is that 3 years from now? And in that time frame, how much more am I paying in rent and having rent increases versus if I owned a property over that time and that property appreciates while my equity also increases and my mortgage balance is being paid down? So is it a point of diminishing return? The answer is absolutely yes. So there is no perfect time. Even for a buyer, is not the best situation to have to compete and get into a situation where you acquire a property, but there is no perfect time. It is dependent on where you are as an individual, what level of financial preparedness you have, and what makes most sense for you in terms of that purchase. Is it something that is going to make sense in terms of your lifestyle, your commute? Is going to make sense for financial reasons as to how long you may stay there, then sell to move on, or something that you may rent eventually? There are simply no perfect time to time out the market. You look for opportunity when it presents itself and be prepared. That's the most important thing. Be prepared for the opportunity. Myth number 4 is the best deals are foreclosures. I get a lot of calls about foreclosures, either someone pursuing one or someone who may have been on Zillow and they saw something that was in pre-foreclosure thinking that that was going to transition into foreclosure pretty quickly, maybe in the next month or a few weeks. Here's the reality. There is no low-hanging fruit, at least not in this New Jersey market. There's just not a lot of low-hanging fruit. Foreclosures, there's a process, there's a couple processes actually in which foreclosures get sold. Some of them do end up on the market, on the MLS, represented by an agent, owned by the bank. Others are in an auction situation, so they're auctioned off. And for auction buyers, you need to have cash. Right? You need to have available cash to make that purchase because that's not a financing type of situation. Whereas a bank that's listing it on the MLS or with an agent or some online portal, it will have an option to come with financing. But there is not a lot of opportunity to get something at a really bottom basement price without taking on a lot of work as well. So how prepared are you if you are looking for a foreclosure? Do you have the cash to be competitive in an auction situation? If you're looking for a foreclosure opportunity and it's already bank owned, often banks, they have time and resources to wait you out. So are they going to just take the lowest price? Are they going to be someone who is really haggling back and forth? More often than not, the answer is no. So there be a set price that the bank simply knows. They'll sit and wait it out. And if you take that on, Do you have the resources or the financing in place to do the renovations, which often go hand in hand with a foreclosure? So best deals in foreclosures? No, not necessarily. Really, the best deals are when you can have, and I'm speaking as the investor now, an off-market opportunity. And if you're someone who is looking at off-market opportunities, those opportunities are normally people who are selling for convenience, not looking to go to market. But that also means that convenience comes with a lot of work that needs to be done on the house, right? So investors, we look for those opportunities because we want to find a deal that makes it very convenient for that seller just to unload it and move on, and then do either a flip of our own or a situation where we find a partner that is looking to take on that kind of opportunity. So yeah, there are opportunities out there. They're hard to find, but if you're working with someone who has a lot of different branches in real estate, it can be helpful to be connected with that kind of agent like myself, who has a network that I'm constantly out there hunting for opportunities for off-market property. So yes, that is a myth in that the best deals are foreclosures. No, they're simply not. Myth number 3, cash buyers dominate the market. They own the market. Well, for one, most buyers are not cash buyers. All right. If you are looking for investment opportunities, that can be the case because investors are out there hunting, especially cash investors. They're coming in and they can be very competitive. In general, however, people who are bidding on a home and they're coming with cash, people's general expectation, and this is my experience as an agent on the buyer side, the expectation is that they're going to be able to get, or they want to be able to get, a better deal with that cash deal. So that cash on the table for a home, let's say the home is for $500,000. That cash buyer may say, hey, look, I really want to be able to buy that at $475 because I can offer a very quick, fast, guaranteed closing. Whereas someone else who comes in at $510 and is financing, it has to go through underwriting. It has to go through a whole process to be approved, which is not guaranteed. So both speed and certainty comes with cash, but that doesn't always win a deal. All right. So when a buyer has a really strong profile and they're coming, let's say, with 20% down, and they give a very comfortable, very aggressive, even above list price offer, and that's compared to a cash offer that's right at list, if not a little lower, you get my point. So that seller has to make a decision. Do I go cash for speed and convenience and leave maybe $25,000, maybe $50,000 on the table? Not necessarily. Which lends to one other point I want to make, which I have referenced in other videos, is if you are financing, it is absolutely in your favor to get a pre-underwritten pre-approval. Get through the underwriting process up front. Yes, there's still going to be work to do once you decide on that property, because during underwriting, they do factor in that particular property. They factor in the taxes and what have you, and still has to be appraised. So not everything is done, but most of the legwork in terms of vetting your finances will be done in a pre-underwritten process. And that gives the seller a little bit more comfort in knowing this person has been completely vetted. We just have to feed the property through that process and get to closing. So strength of profile, it does matter. And there's simply just not a volume of cash buyers out there compared to those who are financing. All right, so before we get into our those top two myths that we want to bust now, just want to throw out a couple resources for those who are buying. We have 2 resources for you. One is a buyer's guide. Going to quickly flash the QR code for that. If you are in the process of purchasing, absolutely reach out. You even have an opportunity to use a Calendly link I have right here in the description as well. There's also, for those who are outside the area, or maybe even outside the country, there is a QR code for you in terms of relocating to New Jersey, just general things about the Garden State. Then we have, for our homeowners, we have a valuation that is given as a courtesy. Just know what your value is, whether you're looking to sell or not. Know what your value is. Have a QR code for you. And if you are curious, what I call cash curious, you'd like to know what an investor would offer for your property today, then there's a QR code you can reach out to get that number. I'll get that information out to you within 2 to 3 days, and you can always reach out to get any kind of feedback that you need from there. So let's go to our top 2. So number 2 is waiting for the best interest rate. All right, waiting for the best interest rate. So here is the thing. A lot of folks, and this is when rates were phenomenal. Rates were all-time historically low. Even when they were there, a lot of people decided not to buy. Reason being is that it was such a frenzy and such a competition. People were determined, I just refuse to pay 10% above list price. Not everyone, because of course the properties were still being sold. But you had some people with the mindset, I am not going to pay 15 or 20% above list price for this property, even though rates were at 2.5. All right. The math plays out in your favor. It would have. For some of you all, you did exactly that. You went in, you made some of y'all, I know some markets like Montclair went in 30% above list price to get in on that property because the math pays off in the long run. So what happens over time? Well, fast forward, we're no longer 2020, 2021, or 22 or 25, and we're not looking anywhere close to 2, 3, or even 4, 5%. Now we're in the high 6s, right? Low 7s. So that is simply not something that is even factored in when rates are low. Right now, they're at a rate which still from a historic standpoint is fair. Actually pretty good. Because there was a time, I know this is going back some time now, I entered the business in 1996. At that time, a rate that was below 8.5 was considered really good. All right. Now that had continued to lower to the point where I first bought my home in 2000. And I think we were more in about where we are right now, actually, about maybe 6 3/4, somewhere in that neighborhood. All right. So, but historically, we're nowhere near 8, 9, 10%, nowhere near it. All right. And it's not anticipated that it goes up to that point. Rates are very stable. You're not married to a interest rate is what's most important. All right. Have your finances well in place in terms of your profile, your pre-approval, but you're not married to that interest rate. You're going to, at some point, likely refinance should those rates drop beyond, I'd say, 1/2 to 3/4 of a point lower than where you start. It's time to really consider refinancing. Definitely 1 point, refinance. It definitely makes a difference. So holding out for interest rate really just is waiting for what we don't know and when it's going to happen. Like, when are those rates going to drop, to what point and when? And there's not a forecast right now. No one has a crystal ball, but there's not a forecast right now that we're going to see significant rates drop where we are in the economy as March 1st, because inflation is still creeping up. We have the tariff issue that is looming over various industry and everyone in terms of what you individually are going to pay just for ordinary life type of items, whether it be food or a vehicle or a house eventually, because it's going to impact housing as well in terms of what's being renovated and built because of cost of supplies. So, or construction materials. So yeah, we're not looking at a situation where we're anticipating we'll be back in 5 range by the end of this year or next year. That's no guarantee, but what is certain is, at least when you're in New Jersey, the comfort that you have is that the floor in our housing market is solid. All right. So that's going to lead into number 1. So I'm not going to get too much more in depth than that. But just note that the interest rate should not be the reason why you decide not to buy. And myth number 1. And this is the one that absolutely has to be debunked, specific to our market in northern New Jersey. And by northern New Jersey, I'm including a lot of what people consider to be either central or South Jersey. Okay, so I'm talking Monmouth County all the way up to Bergen, right? All the way up. So that whole corridor in New Jersey is a lot of the area where people are really, even in Monmouth, commuting to New York City or somewhere in North Jersey for work purposes. There is simply not going to be what's always talked about in terms of a crash or a correction. It's just not going to happen in New Jersey, barring some substantial catastrophic level event. If you remember the crash of 2008, that was something very specific to mortgage. It was mortgages being handed out left and right for those who did not qualify whatsoever and should have never qualified, but there was no regulation, so it was the Wild West. Those days are over. All right, even with some efforts to deregulate in certain facets of finance or mortgage, or I shouldn't say finance, I should say in government regulation in general, there's movements, there's always a continuum swinging back and forth about regulation, deregulation. Even with deregulation, it is highly unlikely we ever get back to that place of deregulation of what mortgages used to be, which led to economic crisis in this country. All right, so that is out the way. That is not what we're experiencing right now, like a bubble that's going to burst. What we simply have here in New Jersey is high demand, low inventory. Inventory is only going to increase when people decide to move on from their homes, and not only move on from their homes, sell their homes. So a lot of the boomer generation right now own a substantial amount of the inventory, and those who choose to move on, some keep the property, rent it, keep it, pass it on to family, but some will eventually start to sell. All right, so will that happen in some type of boom where we have, all this inventory available and now prices start to shrink back? Not for our area because it's so densely populated. And even though people do leave New Jersey, even though people do leave New York, there are still always substantial numbers of people who are coming in, and those who already live here and have been renting, but now decide they want to purchase a home. So because of the dynamics of where we are, the incomes that are here, the attraction because people are going to work here and gravitate to this area for the various industries that are available right here, odds are we are not going to see any kind of shortage of demand anytime soon. We eventually will see more inventory, but that's going to take some time in itself. So there is no crash. There is no pullback. There may be a flat lining of how many properties, like for example, you heard me in a previous episode mention how there was a 40% reduction in sales 2024 compared to 23, right? So real estate sales, it did take a dip, but that's not a reflection of a market crash whatsoever. That was the number of units sold, how many people were selling, and those units definitely did sell, don't make no question about it, but how many units were being sold took a drop, but our demand has not. So we'll see some flatlining perhaps in terms of how much homes are appreciating year over year. We'll see maybe a little bit of even out, which we need to, right? We need to see an evening out of how much over list price or even how much year to year homes appreciate. That's essentially making it a lot more challenging to buy a property. We want to see that flat line a little bit because it's just healthier for everyone to be able to obtain a home, but we're not seeing a crash. All right. So people who are worried about it, am I going to buy this and then it not be the same value a year from now? You're not going to have that problem again, barring an unforeseen catastrophic event, which I cannot predict. I don't know about anybody else. I know I cannot, but the way the trends are right now, we are not looking at a crash in this region of the country. So I'd love to hear your insights on these myths, your experiences as well. Drop some commentary right here. This is a community. I've loved that we've had a lot of engagement over the past several episodes, past couple months, a lot of people sharing insights, experiences. Definitely let's make this a forum where we can learn and glean some insights from each other to better navigate wherever you may be. If you're a homeowner or if you are someone on the hunt, if you're a renter or you're a landlord, or if you're just someone who just loves reminiscing and reflecting on New Jersey, right? Because I have a lot of content on different locations in New Jersey. Let's keep that conversation going right here on this platform. So again, click like, subscribe, notification bell. We have more episodes like this coming your way on a weekly basis. So in the meantime, stay safe and stay tuned to New Jersey Living.